Being able to focus seems like it's a God-sent ability that only a few people have. We've all had goals, and trying to be consistent with the goals just seems really hard at times. Not because it's hard, but just because we just can't focus enough. We try to use our willpower, and sometimes, yes, that works for like an extended period of time, but eventually our minds will just want to do something else. The problem is that you just don't know how your mind works. There's one thing I want you guys to pay attention to, is the tendency of you wanting to click off this video. Look for the urge to do something else, and then as best as you can, just try and stick to your video as best as you can. I'm not saying this for you to, be here longer. I'm just saying it because the way you manage your urge will sort of prove the point of a certain concept, and it will help you learn this habit. And one thing to know about focus is that focus is a state of mind. You can't just tap in, you can't just snap into deep focus just like that. It's like sleep. You can't go from being wide awake to being in deep sleep. You gotta go through shallow sleep first, and then you transition to full-on deep sleep. Just like focus, you gotta go through the shallow focus to transition into deep focus. So there are 3 neurochemicals that you need to maintain focus. You need epinephrine, which is adrenaline, acetylcholine, which is responsible for how alert you are, and then there's dopamine, which is responsible for your motivation and drive. So the first trait about your mind that you have to know is that your mind loves new experiences. The first time you do anything feels so much more amazing compared to the experiences that's gonna come after it. The second trait, your mind builds tolerance to things, whether that's from the stimuli from your shirt. The first time you put on a shirt, you're gonna feel the texture of it, but over time, you're gonna get used to it. Same thing with music. The first time you're gonna listen to a song, it's amazing, but over time, if you keep on listening to the same song, your mind will kind of get bored of it and it will want to listen to a new song. The tendency to switch will arise. Our phones and the internet take advantage of these things astoundingly well, and are obviously big contributors to the reason why we can't focus as much. Wow, you know what I'm saying? Our phones actively force our brains to engage in context switching, the act of switching tasks or thought process. And of course, this is not good for focus at all. The more we're interrupted and switch to a different task or thought, the more time it takes for us to indulge deeply in that certain task or thought, which then makes it easier for the brain to find something new. And this is also why multitasking isn't really efficient, but that's a different conversation. The problem isn't that you can't focus. The problem is that your mind would rather do something else. And how we combat that is a technique called urge surfing. Urge surfing is a technique that addiction psychiatrists use to help patients who are addicted to things like heroin, that helps them withstand their cravings. Yes, I'm comparing you to a heroin addict. And so if we look at the mind, our urges and cravings will arise, but if we're able to withstand these urges, surf above them, they'll eventually subside. They'll eventually go away. Because think about it, our minds eventually build tolerance and will eventually get bored in the things that we do. And just like the things that we do, the mind will eventually build tolerance and get bored to the urges we have, just as long as you don't give in. We've all experienced this one way or another. Like, for an example, let's say you want a cookie, but you will have no cookies in your relative space, so eventually the urge to get a cookie or to eat a cookie or whatever will eventually go away. And obviously this concept is easier to explain than to actually produce in actuality, since cravings can be really intense, but it is a skill that you can learn. And so in order to urge surf, you have to first recognize your desire to switch, and that desire to switch is a craving in itself. And so what happens is our brains build a tolerance to the activity, and then our brain starts to crave something else, since it is so used to constant dopamine activity like phones, TikTok, not just TikTok. I'm not trying to be like a TikTok hater, but no cravings will last forever. No emotions will last forever. This is the natural tendency of the mind. Become aware of this and use it to your advantage. know that at some point your mind will become bored of its cravings and it will eventually go away. And if you continue to surf on that urge, you will find that over time that your mind will just get tired of wanting something, and instead of switching tasks, our mind will naturally head its focus onto the objective that you want to. But what if my urge is to get on TikTok or Instagram or whatever is too powerful? Notice what your mind is doing. Instead of trying at all or trying to make it work with a smaller urge, it goes to the most extreme case where you are destined to fail. Your mind is playing a trick on you because it knows that with time it will work. It's resisting the desire to even try it. So just don't start with the biggest urge. It's a skill. You gotta build it up. And meditation is another tactic that can help with your focus too. If you know how to meditate. Meditation, it's somewhat the same thing, sort of. Since when you meditate, you are usually focusing on one thing, like your breath. But if you've ever meditated before, you know that your mind will eventually kind of do this, like it will wander off. And so you consciously redirect your thoughts into your breath again. And that's really the whole main idea of meditation. It's just trying to focus on one thing, not necessarily let your thoughts wander off, but consciously catching yourself and trying to focus on one thing as much as possible. The third tool that can help you are 40 Hertz binaural beats, which increases levels of dopamine and acetylcholine. And there are a bunch of apps that have binaural beats, whether it's for meditation, sleep, and of course focus, because that's the whole point of the video. And you can also find binaural beats on just YouTube. And the way that I use it, which I got from watching Dr. Huberman, by the way, okay, is that about 5 minutes before you want to go to defocus, just put it on so your mind gets into the state of focus more easily. I don't usually use it when I'm in like my deep focus like session, which I mean you can, but I don't know, I don't do it. The only time I do use it the whole focus session, if there's like a lot going on. And of course, using headphones is recommended for the most optimal effect. White noise is another sound-based tool that doesn't necessarily help you focus more. It more so helps you transition into your focus state more easily, which I use all the time and not consciously, because like I always have my fan on like that and it never gets a break like that. It's always on. And stress can also increase your focus. And it's pretty odd because we usually think that the more stressed we are, the harder it is to focus, which it's wrong. You're wrong. Because stress actively increases your epinephrine, your adrenaline. I'm just gonna say adrenaline, which is one of the neurochemicals you need to attain focus. And this is why people use cold showers, which I mean, I used to do, I don't do it no more. And that's a fun fact about cold exposure. There's like an age-old practice where people would deliberately put themselves into cold water right after they've learned something as a way to consolidate their memories, which I thought was pretty cool. So I mean, yeah, like those are the things that personally help me increase my focus. So hopefully, you know what I'm saying, like it'll help you.